No, it's not recording. I think I'm pretty sure it's recording. There's a light on the other side that's flashing. Here.
Okay.
God, I hate filming things.
Before going on a backpacking or a camping trip, you need to ensure that you have adequate gear and equipment. In this lesson, we'll teach you what essential gears you may need and qualities you should look for with them. But first,
There are 5 things that you need to consider. First would be durability. Then weight, how serviceable it is in the field. Fourth would be how it reacts to different altitudes. And fifth, weather conditions. Oh, am I right?
first we're going to go over group equipment, and we're going to start with shelters. There's a number of different types of shelters that you can use. One of them is a plastic tent. With your tent, you want to make sure that you have all your stakes included, as well as any paracords or guy lines you may need, and ensure that there's no rips or tears in it before you go out on your trip.
You want your tent to be durable. You don't want your tent to break, because if it breaks, you won't have a shelter. You also want it to be serviceable in the field. So if the tent does get a hole in it, you want to be able to easily repair that. You can bring a repair kit with you to aid in that.
One of the ways that you can repair a tent or things that might need repairing are either patches or sewing up holes, and then also sometimes a pole can break, and often within the pole kit there will be little extra bits that are included where you duct tape them together and repair the pole to usable, at least so you can finish the trip.
You also need to consider the weight of the tent. You don't want a very heavy tent because you're going to be carrying it on your back all day. So a nice light tent that is still durable would be best. You can also, on a single person trip, bring a one-person tent, which is very small so that it only fits one person. So make sure you choose the appropriate size tent for your trip, and you also have the option of having a gear vestibule if you opt for a one-person tent and need more room.
One way to prolong the lifespan on your tent is to have a foot pad, and that's basically a tarp that goes underneath your tent. And this just protects the actual tent structure itself from becoming damaged. And this is especially useful in rocky or gravelly terrain. Another thing that you want to consider is whether or not your tent is freestanding. So if it's freestanding, that means it doesn't have to be staked in order to stand up. And this is important if you're going to be in a rocky terrain where you're not going to have actual soft ground to stake your tent in. You won't actually be able to use your tent. Another option instead of a tent is a bivy sack, and this is a personal, it's almost like an outer sleeping bag. It just encases the individual and their sleeping bag, and there's not a lot of room. I tried them once and I hated it.
You said you almost died.
Yeah.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
And this is just a very lightweight option that you can use, and they often don't need any extra poles or stakes or gear other than that. But this is not suitable for group use. It's just an individual person.
Tarps are another option that are best suited for arid environments that don't have a lot of rain or intense weather conditions, or areas that don't have a lot of bugs. Bugs!
And when you're going out on a trip, you need to consider what type of stove you're going to be using. You're going to need at least one stove for every 3 to 4 people. There are 2 main types of stoves. Jetboil is a popular type which uses an isobutane fuel blend. And then another one is whisper lights or dragonflies or anything of that sort that uses white gas. The pros of a Jetboil is that they're pretty durable. They are not very serviceable in the field, so if you have a problem with them, it's a little bit harder to fix them out there because they're a self-contained system. And so it's very lightweight and compact, and it's good for 1 to 2 people, maybe 3. You can get larger sizes, and it's good for if you're just doing things that need hot water and reheating. Other option is a whisper light. The best part about these is that they're very easy to service, so if one isn't working, you can almost always clean it or fix it in the field. One of the biggest disadvantages of them is that they are not self-contained, and you have to have a different pot or pan to cook with on them. So there are several options that you can use for water purification if you need to. A common one is bleach, then there's also chlorine, and there's iodine, and then there's also mechanical filtration. So this is what the iodine looks like. And today they're not made like this anymore. You get a little iodine tablet that you would dissolve into your water bottle or cooking water or something. But this is actual iodine crystals, and you fill the bottle up with water and you let it saturate, and then you put the iodine saturated water into your water. And the best part about this is that these crystals last for tens of thousands of uses. So you buy one bottle one time and it'll last you a lifetime. Another form of water purification is a life straw or another physical filtration system. These aren't as good at getting live viruses and things, but they're very good at getting particles and tannins out of the water. And the best thing about them is that they don't leave a flavor in your water. Other group equipment that you might need would include a repair kit. We talk a lot in this about serviceability and being able to patch and sew up your gear, having various types of patches for whatever your gear may need, either ones that need to be glued on, one that comes in a roll that already has a sticky backing, or even carrying a little bit of needle and thread with you to be able to sew things up. And super glue comes in handy a lot, as well as duct tape. A good first aid kit is important. You want one that is well stocked and suitable for the amount of people that are in your trip, as well as how long that you're going to be out there. You can buy ones that are already pre-packed for you, and they are rated for X amount of people for X amount of days. It's recommended that you supplement it either with higher quality band-aids and gauze, and as well as any medications and other things that you might think that would be useful out there. Also good to have an all-weather notebook out there. This is good for writing down any trip plans and notes, route changes, medical information if there's an emergency, and anything else you might need.
Why are these people so obnoxious? Tone it down.
Now we're going to go over your personal equipment list and anything that you need for yourself, things that will not be shared with the rest of the group typically.
So there's two main types of sleeping bags that you can bring with you: synthetic sleeping bags and down sleeping bags. The advantage to synthetics is that they are cheaper in price, and they also will dry out faster and still keep you warm when they're wet. The advantages to a down sleeping bag is that they are warmer, lighter, and they can compress more easily. But if they get wet, they're much heavier and do not dry out. And they also don't keep you warm if they are wet. And they are expensive.
One thing to consider when you're buying your sleeping bags is the temperature rating system. For instance, this is a woman's sleeping bag, and it's rated to 3.2 degrees for a woman. And the difference between a male and a woman is that a woman's body temperature runs 10 to 15 degrees colder. So if you are a woman and you're buying a men's sleeping bag and it's rated to 0 degrees, that means for you it's only going to be rated for 10 to 15 degrees actually. And the rating systems, they're based on if you're wearing long underwear, a thermal hat, if you have a 1.5 inch insulated sleeping pad underneath you. One way to make your sleeping bags warmer is to buy a liner bag, and these often come in wool or silk, and that goes inside your sleeping bag, and it can make your bag anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees warmer depending on your needs.
So there's three main types of sleeping pads. You got the self-inflating sleeping pad, which you just open this valve and it inflates on its own. You've got the non-self-inflating, which you have to blow up with your mouth. And then you have the foam pad, which just unrolls, very simple.
The pros of a foam sleeping pad is that they're often the lightest ones. They're the easiest to set up. You just either unfold it, unroll it, when you're done with it, you just fold it back up, roll it back up. They're very durable, you can't pop them or anything, and they're also the most inexpensive. These ones, the manual inflating ones, are often the most expensive ones, but they're also the warmest ones and also the most comfortable ones, as they create the most dead air space and give you the most cushion from the ground. And the self-inflating ones are kind of a happy medium in price and warmth and comfort between those two.
Something you have to consider is that these types of sleeping pads are going to need a patching kit if they pop while you're in the field, whereas these are not going to need anything because you cannot puncture them. You also want to look at the sizes when you're purchasing a sleeping pad. They usually come in 3 main sizes: the short, the regular, and the long. The longer you want if you're a generally taller person, and the shorter you may want if you're a shorter person and want to save a little bit of money instead of buying a regular.
Clothing!
Some clothing that you're going to need while you're out there is a synthetic t-shirt, some athletic shorts, long underwear, tops and bottoms, some good rain gear, either a fleece or a puffy jacket. The puffy jacket, when it gets wet, it doesn't keep you as warm. They pack really small, whereas a fleece jacket, it will still keep you warm even when it's wet. You can also bring a warm hat if it's cold out, or a hat that provides sun protection if it's very sunny, and some gloves if you're in an area where it's very cold and you need to protect your hands. You're also going to need to bring a good pair of wool socks that'll keep you warm. It's also helpful to have liner socks to prevent blisters since you'll be walking around a lot.
One of the most important parts of a hiking and camping trip, of course, are your hiking boots. You want very good quality hiking boots if you want them to last more than just this one trip. If you have weak ankles, it's really good to have some with some ankle support to them. And then while you're at the base camp or camp for the night, you're going to want a lighter weight pair of sneakers to walk around camp and kind of air out your feet for the night and rest them.
To hydrate yourself, you can opt for either a water bottle or a water bladder. Water bottles come in a variety of sizes. You might want a larger water bottle like this for a trip that's in a more arid region where you're going to need to hydrate a lot more often. And then you can also get them in a more reasonable size for more temperate climates.
The benefit of a bladder bag is that you can take a drink while walking without having to do much effort. The main con behind these is that they can pop and they will get your back and gear wet if that does happen. Where did I talk about the emergency whistle? A backcountry essential is the knife. There are multiple types of knives and multi-knives that you can choose from. The most simple one is a fixed blade knife. These ones are relatively inexpensive, and especially this brand, Mora Knife, is very durable and a very good price for the quality that you get. Another one is a switchblade style knife, which flips out. If you do choose to have this style, it's important that you have one that's locking so that it can't flip down and cut your fingers while you're using it. A multi-tool. Leathermans are a common brand. They come with pliers, sometimes nail clippers, scissors, bottle openers, and can openers, and they often also have a knife in them as well. Obviously, one of the most important factors in a backpacking trip is the backpack. When you're buying a backpack or choosing a backpack for your trip, it's important to decide how big of one you need. And this is going to depend on how long the trip is, how much gear you have, and how bulky it is, as well as how much gear you can carry. This is a 65-liter pack, and this is a 90-liter pack, so obviously this one is going to carry quite a bit more than that one. Sizing is very important. This is a woman's pack, and this is a men's pack, and the biggest difference between those two is that a woman's pack often has a shorter torso part, more padding on the hips, as well as curvier lines on the shoulder pads. However, that does not mean that you have to buy a woman's pack if you are a woman, or you have to buy a men's pack if you are a man. They are all pretty much fully customizable in sizing. You can buy the hip pads in different sizes, as well as this one, for instance, has a metal track on here where these straps slide up and down to make the torso longer, and this one has a Velcro system where this plate right here can be slid up and down for a longer torso.
So you want to consider the durability of your pack when you're purchasing it. If you're purchasing it online, you should look at reviews and see how they've stood up on other people's trips. And if you're purchasing it in person, you should try it on, feel the material, and see how high quality it is. And sometimes, even if it seems like a good deal, it might just be because it's lower quality. So maybe opt for the backpack that is more expensive and seems like it's better quality. It's also nice to purchase a rain fly for your backpack, because then it will cover it up during any rain spells and keep your gear dry. In conclusion, the most important gear that you're going to purchase is your backpack, your sleeping bag, your tent, and your hiking boots. That gear and everything else that you bring on your trip, you're going to need to follow DWSAW guidelines when you're purchasing it to try to optimize your trip. I swear! Okay.